Welcome to Roll for Crit. You're watching our review of Kapow, a two-player dice-rolling superhero versus villain game originally published by Two Ton Porcupine. Now White Wizard Games is picking it up for a reprint of the title, and it involves two players as a superhero and a supervillain trying to go at each other. The first player to knock the other one down to 0 life is the winner.
Yes, this is a dice building game, both in building your dice pool of these 5 different colored dice, but as well as building a die. In a basic game, you'll start off with one of each colored die, as well as a die here with 5 blanks and 1 wild side face. You'll be able to buy more of these custom dice or pop these blank faces off and replace them with other faces you can see over there. Some wild, some basic symbols. In a game, you're going to take all the dice you have, give them a roll them behind your screen. Now, usually you wait until both teams are done to remove the screen, but we're just going to remove it now so you can see.
Get out of here.
And you'll take a look at your dice and you're going to assign it. Wow, this is actually pretty good. To the board in different places. Now, this happens to be a really good roll with a bunch of wilds, but let's just change a couple of these for the sake of the argument. You're going to have a bunch of different symbols here and you're going to try to match them up on these boards. Now, we're going to talk about these two first because that's sort of your bread and butter, attacking and defending. Now, they work very similarly. Both of them, you'll get a base attack and a base defense. Then you'll get to try to add as many kickers as you want, and then 1 multiplier. These will, of course, add up, especially as you get more dice. You can assign them to more different spots, like this here and this here. Some of them require any die, some of them specifically the action die. These are trait die. Some of them just 2 of the same symbols, so it's a whole bunch of trying to find out how can you take your dice and use them to the best of your ability. Now, another interesting thing is that whoever attacks first is whoever's life is lowest. So that can be also an interesting mechanic of deciding, okay, maybe because I'm first, I can go in for that huge attack because maybe I can kill them before hopefully they kill me. Or if you're second, you're like, this is where I want to invest more in defense because I don't get that first hit.
Right. Now, this third column over here may or may not directly affect the other player, but generally it's about building up your own stuff. So there is a column to re-roll dice. You have to spend a die to re-roll other ones. So if you really get a bad roll, that's something you can do. Something you probably want to use on blank die faces, which usually aren't useful. But a lot of it is also getting more dice. So you might use one of these abilities to get more trait dice. And you can choose a color, but it's first come, first serve. So if a color runs out, you're out of luck. Or you can get another action die or add more faces, as we said, to this die. And, you know, it's whatever color you want. So you might end up with an action die that has all of one face, or maybe a mix and match. If there's something specific that you're going for, maybe you want to keep it completely balanced, that's up to you. Those are your basic abilities that you're always going to have. But if you'd like, you can also add in these superhero boards that add on to it, or villains, as the case may be. And these give you specialized stats. So not only are you going to start with a different setup of dice as well as maybe different health values, you're also going to have your own unique abilities that the other players don't have that could be really powerful and will definitely change up the way you play the game.
Right, for example, these are sort of your main hero and villain, I think, of this storyline. They actually have abilities that are right off, don't have any dice, you just have it, a base defense and a base attack kicker, as well as really weird, crazy abilities. This one makes all your defense kickers add to your attack. So remember when you'd have to decide attack or defense? Not anymore.
Get them both.
This one pays life to get huge attacks, so he's all about trying to really hit your opponents quickly. And as you can see, very different life totals as well.
Yeah.
Now, there are 3 in each column, each with their own fun, different abilities. One does a bit more of messing around with the yellow symbol. One actually is trying to punish your opponent.
Some of them actually can let you unlock abilities permanently, so you never have to pay dice for them again, which is awesome. Some very cool ideas in there.
By the way, small thing, but I know some people may be worried. They have a little tool here so you can easily pop off a face. To make it a little bit easier. They may go flying sometimes, though, depending on how strong you are. And then you just snap them in like that, and boom. Only 4 blanks.
Yeah, it's better already. Now, I think this is the most immediately innovative and eye-catching thing about this game, and it is very cool to, we've had custom cards at this point and sleeves.
Dice pooling isn't the newest thing.
Right, but to actually
build the die,
literally alter it in this way is really cool. It's really fun to do. It does sometimes take a little time if you're adding 3 dice. So you got to wait to pop these all off, but it's not really that bad. And you do feel like, oh yeah, I'm now my die is better. It's a very simple, straightforward, but effective way of.
You have these really fun conversations. likely unlock a second one, so I'm just going to put a wild on here. But let's say you do unlock 2 yells. Do I put them on this one to make it really hard to come up with a blank? Do I split them evenly? There's a really fun build. And as you said, first come, first serve for both faces and these, though. Really, it's the regular die pool where you might have to worry about that more. Maybe you have to decide, I really want to make sure I get these 2 yells before he does.
Right, yeah, just deprive them of that, possibly. And
then, of course, there's also trying to read your opponent. You know, you don't get to see what their die rolls are, but maybe if they re-roll a couple times, because you do have to announce if you're doing a re-roll. Maybe like they're not feeling like there's a strong turn right now. Or if you're playing with the villains, for example, if you're playing against Victor Kane, you know he's probably going to go on the offensive. That's his thing. So you might be a bit more worried, like, I should be playing a bit more defensively. Can I get away with not putting in defense? Should I put in attack more? And then because whoever goes first is whoever has less life, you may be like, maybe I want to get hit.
Right, yeah. Some of your abilities might even trigger based off you getting hit. So sometimes that's another thing to take into account. But my favorite thing about this game is that, you know, it's a dice rolling game, and you'd imagine in most of these games, it's all about, the luck of the roll / how can I change my roll? How can I re-roll? What can I do to make sure I get the faces I want? I found that in this game, maybe you feel differently, but for me, most frequently, what I got, I was always able to use them to do something good. And once in a while I needed to re-roll, but it was very rare that I felt like, I just got a bad roll. I felt like there's enough variety in the abilities you can do that's like, well, maybe I wanted to attack more, but I'll go defense instead, and it still can work for me.
I've had like 1 or 2 rolls like that, and that was because I amazingly, this is a 1 in, I don't know how to calculate that. It's like everything went blank.
Right.
Like it was really, but for the most part, and except maybe when you're in the very end of the game where you're like, this has to be my good round.
True.
Because usually, we never had anyone, I think, like a snowball. No one was at 2 when the other one was still in 19.
Yeah.
It was usually a pretty solid comparative health pool. And because, as you said, even with blanks, the any die symbol can be a blank.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, I have a base of 1,
right,
but I can do a 4 kicker, and I'm let's say this is later on in the game, and I'm gonna multiply times 2 and stuff, so I'm still hitting for 10.
It can get really crazy with some of those, and I think so much of it comes back to what you were saying, which is reading your opponent. And it's not so much, did I get the dice to attack? It's, well, I could get the dice to attack maybe, but is it better to defend? Are they gonna, there's a thing to punish them if they go for dice, so you're thinking, are they gonna do that? I don't know.
We should mention, if it wasn't obvious, the die do tend to have more symbols. They're actually on the back of this board here. Purple and green tend to be better for your defensive needs, with red and yellow being better for attacking, and blue used to be best for upgrading in case that. So that's another reason for buying, if you want to buy whatever you want to. So you really can customize your game, both pool and die, to fit whatever your strategy is going to be.
Here are our crits and misses for Kapow, beginning with crits. The feeling of progression as you customize your dice pool is super satisfying, especially as it relates to the dice that you can literally customize and build yourself. The game revolves around dice rolling, but it doesn't feel like you're at the mercy of the dice. Generally, you're going to be thinking more about what your opponent's going to do than worrying about what your roll will be.
Maybe you get that one chance where all your dice come out blank or just not the symbols you want, but more often than not, you could still use them. Whether it's for re-rolls or maybe instead of that big attack you wanted, you use this turn to defend and get that bigger dice pool through upgrades.
The unique heroes and villains that you can play as add a good amount of variety to the board and can completely change the way that you play the game, depending on which ones you use.
Misses. In the end, you are just rolling lots of dice, and as I said before, maybe you get that one turn where you just get a lot of blanks, or you planned poorly and you were hoping your opponent didn't do a huge attack and they did. Randomness is a part of this. It wasn't as big of a deal for me personally, but I know for some other people that randomness may be a turnoff. While the superhero art is very charming, a lot of the theming seems to really come from the name of abilities, which we found out we weren't really saying. We weren't going like zap or knock. We were just saying, I hit you for 10 damage. The theme isn't as strong maybe as it may seem.
I liked some of the superhero abilities and the way they kind of work with their characters, but for most of the game, you're really staring at a grid of symbols and abilities and numbers, so if you're in it for really that heavy superhero aspect, you probably won't get it from this game.
Superheroes aren't a stranger to the board game world, especially with the Marvel movies become bigger. Obviously, they become a lot bigger in the board game world as well. But the way this does the dice pool, and honestly, just seeing heroes that aren't part of DC and Marvel is always just a nice, fresh taste.
Yeah, like Sentinels of the Multiverse, it's fun to see unique heroes that are maybe inspired by comic book heroes, but a different kind of a thing. They're kind of like tongue-in-cheek and funny.
Yes, and of course, all the cards have almost like a mini comic book cover on the back with a quote. I actually, though, have a problem. They have the comic book code on there. Not a fan of that.
This is an old school one. But yeah, I mean, this is just a really fun, engaging, head-to-head 2-player dice game. You can expand potentially to 3 or 4 players if you get a second set, I believe.
We actually have the one that's not the White Wizard copy just yet, so I don't know if they've added any extra boards in there and stuff, but it is designed that you could add more people should you have more cores. And they have a supervillain sort of expansion thing where it can be like a 1v-all kind of style. So there's a lot of different ways to play it, and if you like dice games at all, like anything building, maybe even like Sagrada comes to mind, or Role Player, this is definitely one to check out. We had a lot of fun. It's a cool head-to-head style, and I mean, building this customized dice is just the coolest thing.
Yeah, and especially if you have another player that you know is going to be into that too, because it's head-to-head. Yeah, I think it's super fun. It's a superhero game, and it's super fun. So stay tuned, because I believe the White Wizard edition should be out around now, if not very soon. So take a look for that. Otherwise, you can try to find Kapow wherever games are sold.
Let us know what your thoughts on it. If you got an early copy of this or finally got the White Wizard, of course, let us know in the comments down below or anywhere else. And until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
This is Roll for Crit.
Never miss out by liking and subscribing, and you can also check out more on our Patreon.
We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Twitch, so follow us there.